everyone. Good day. You're welcome. Good day, you're welcome. Welcome to today's webinar for week 4. So we are going to give like an additional 1 minute for more of your colleagues to join, and then we'll start. We have our presenter with us already, and she's really looking forward to speak to you all. So take like 1 additional minute for more participants to join. But in the meantime, please, you can introduce yourself in the chat, your name, where you're joining us from, your country of origin, so that our presenter sees the demographics we have in the house today. Hi, Roderick, you're welcome. Hello, Femi, welcome. We are still going to give a little time for more participants to join, and we'll start officially. Hi, Jen. Hi, Josie. So thank you. And with that, I think we can start. So my name is Success Eugene, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I'm the Leadership Skill and Development Coordinator for WMI. And the webinar you are in for is Introduction to Budgeting, which is the week 4 webinar. And this is the first webinar. The next one is happening on Thursday. So you're welcome, you're in the right place, and it's going to be an interesting one. So if you have any question, any comments, you can use the chat or the Q&A section to ask your questions. But please, we would really want you to be very, very, interactive, so you get to learn a lot from a presenter who is really ready to speak to every one of you here. So that being said, I want to also talk about the pitch competition, which is going to come up at the last week of the academy, but there will be a registration, so prepare for that. Make sure you are following the webinar tenaciously so you can be well prepared for the pitch when it comes up. And now I'm going to introduce our able presenter, Professor Elizabeth Kalunda. So Prof. Kalunda is an associate professor of finance at the United States International University, Africa. She's serving as the acting deputy vice chancellor of finance and operations. She's an ardent researcher with several publications in reputable journals. She's also the vice chair of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Prof. Kalunda serves on a diverse range of boards spanning private companies like Lofty Coban Investments Limited, professional organizations like the Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board, KASNEP, educational institutions like Kasarani Technical and Vocational Center, and 2 high schools. She holds a Bachelor of Education from Moi University, an MBA from University of Nairobi, and a PhD from University of Nairobi. She's a certified public mediator, DPM, and a member of the Association of Women Accountants of Kenya, AWA. So we have Prof. Kalunda with us already, and she's excited to speak to every one of you. So that being said, Prof. Kalunda, you are welcome, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Success, for that lovely introduction. And thank you for this opportunity to share my knowledge on budgeting with your young scholars. And our desire is that as they leave their education and they start on their career, they'll be able to know how to do budgeting. Because that's a very, very, very important tool, either from a business perspective and also from a personal perspective. So, my dear students or scholars, I don't know how to refer to you, but I'm happy to be here. I'm just going through the charts, and I can see you are actually from so many countries in Africa, and that is good. And I'm hoping as much as you're having these sessions, you're also interacting with yourselves so that you can just be able to get different perspective from each other in terms of how I know our countries differ. We are all in Africa, majority of us, but there can be differences here and there. So my hope is that you interact so that you are able to just learn more from each other. Yeah, so as it was mentioned, I'll be taking you through this session on budgeting. Please confirm to me that you're able to see my screen. Are we able to see the screen clearly?
Yes, ma'am. You can see your screen
Okay,
clearly.
fine. All right, thank you. Yeah, so the topic that we are going to look at today is a very significant topic for any person who has a business mind or any person who actually is going to come across resources that they need to manage. So we have objectives or learning outcomes that we need to have at the end of this session. So by the time we are done, I just want you to check and ask yourself, one, do you understand what budgets are? Do you have an idea of the different types of budgets? Do you have, are you now able, after we are done, to come up with a simple budget? And then it will also be very good to just know the budget challenges and solutions, because whatever we learn when you go to the actual ground to find things could be different. So it will be very important for you to know the challenges that you're likely to encounter and how to solve or to resolve that. And then finally, we are going to look at tips to effective budgeting. So class, I hope we are together on that. So you should be having a paper somewhere to just confirm whether you'll have learned all that. So as an introduction, and looking at the background and the feedback or just the brief background that have been given about the team of those of you I'm presenting to you. One of the requirements is that you should be able to come up with maybe a business or something of that nature. So let me assure you that starting a new business is very exciting. Can I have a show of hand to just know whether some of you have businesses, or just the idea of you thinking, looking 2 years from now, 5 years, I'll be having my business. Will that be exciting? So let me just see by through the chat or through emojis how that would be. And I assure you, for me, I know that's a very exciting thing. I'm an entrepreneur and I know how it feels. But then now with all that excitement, it is interesting for you to know that 90% of startups fail. Are we together there? Yeah, good. I can see the comments coming. Yeah, so this is a very important statistic. 90% of startups fail. So meaning in this class, where I can see we are 23, 90% of us, if we all start businesses now, there's a chance that 90%, 1 out of 10 of businesses that we start are the ones that will succeed. So the 9 will fail. Now, because of that, it is important to know, why do they fail? Now, one thing we need to reckon is that the reason why they fail is not because they had a bad idea, not that they didn't know the right market or have the passion for whatever product or service they were offering. The main reason is that these startups ran out of money. So the purpose of this presentation is to help us avoid the situation of being among the 90% who will run out of money. So essentially, budgeting is very important. And that is why we are here, so that we are at least among the 10%. Yeah, so okay, good. Sorry. Yeah, so as we proceed, the first thing that we need to know, therefore, is what is this secret of success? And I've said budgeting is one of the key tools. So we need to understand, so what is budgeting? What is a budget? So the word budgeting itself, this is a process. And it is a process of creating a financial plan for a future period. So what does that mean? Is that a budget is a plan. When you're planning, you sit down and then come up with ideas. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And it does not relate to now. It relates to a future period. So essentially what this means is that for you to start a business that will be successful, before you start the business, you must be able to have an eye of how will this business be? Where will I get the money? How will I spend the money? If I have any excess from what I need and what I'm going to spend, how will I spend that money? So that is very important. A budget is for the future. You don't sit back and then after you spend your money and then you start saying, by the way, I've run short of money, so I need to start writing, how did I spend the money? No, that is not how it is done. So a budget, we've said this is a critical tool for managing finances and ensuring long-term success. Again, a budget will help us to plan for expenses. Expenses refer to the things that will make you spend money out of the business, or things, or how money will be coming out of the business. Let me call it like that. So when you talk about expenses, these are things that you engage in that will result to money leaving the business. So the budget will help you to plan for expenses. It will also help you to set your financial goals. It will help you to make informed decisions. And the one thing I want to emphasize, as much as the budget will tell us about the projected revenue, one thing that is very important is about the expenses. You know, if you don't have a plan, you might think that you have too much money and then you start buying things that you didn't need. So a budget will actually be there to tell you, no, 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 no. As much as you feel this, that you want this, you have to stick to the plan. Again, we are saying that a budget should include where the money will come from. So if I'm starting a small business as a clinic, my question should be, where will money come from? So for you to answer that, you'll say a clinic is for treating patients. So essentially, money will come from the patients who will be coming to your hospital. If I'm setting a business where I'm selling maybe chicken, large scale, the question here should be, or the response to this will be, my money will come from the chicken that I'll be selling or the eggs that I'll be selling. So you must be very clear, where is the money coming from? Now that aside, as you do your budget, you might be able to see that maybe at the initial stages, you need to get money from elsewhere, outside the core activities. So money can even come from a loan. Money can come from, as you grow up, you can bring in more partners. So they can bring in money in form of capital. So it's very important that when you start a budget, you should include where the potential sources of revenue will come from. Otherwise, you'll be falling at situations where you need cash, but you don't even know where money is coming from. And for most businesses, and why they fail is that when you find that you've run short of money, you are going to go to people who can lend you money on a short term. The people who who will lend you money on a short term basis, these are people who will definitely give you very high interest rates. Same, an example would be if I go to the bank right now and I want to apply for a loan, the loan process is long. But if I want to get an overdraft, that can come in very fast, but the cost is high. If I decide to go to maybe a Shiloh, because I'm imagining even friends might not give me, so let me go to these people who lend money. I'm sure you see them everywhere in the newspapers, in advertisements everywhere for quick money, just come within 24 hours, you have the money. The cost of that money will be very big. So if the cost is high, let's say 20%, for every 100 shillings you borrow, you pay 20 shillings. Essentially what that means is, even for you to invest that money in the business, you should be able to get more than 20 shillings as profit so that you can repay and also retain something for the business. So the question will be, what business is this? So such businesses are very rare. So we are saying that the budget should include where the money will come from for the business to continue to operate. Otherwise, you'll be part of the 90%. And then some consolation here. Remember, we said that a budget is for the future. So you sit down and project. So whatever budget you come up with will not be 100% accurate when you actually actualize it. When the period comes for you to implement the budget, if you compare what you have spent, the revenues that you have received, vis-a-vis what you had projected, they will not match 100%. And that's why it's very important to monitor your budget and the actuals, and also to just be on the lookout in terms of what assumptions were you having when you came up with the budget. Because you can imagine, if you come up with wrong assumptions when coming up with the budget, you'll actually have a shock of your life. And by this, I mean, let's say maybe you assume that I am very friendly with people, I am very popular, I've seen that this area, people are sick and they need a hospital. And then you say that you'll be having so many patients. You'll be surprised maybe with all that, that people will not come to your business. Maybe they have another place they go, which is far, which they get other services, maybe at a subsidized rates, or they just like the ambience of that place. So your assumptions in terms of where your revenues will come from need to be very realistic. That's why you must do a market research before you start any business. So another thing I want to add about the budget is that as you prepare a budget, especially if you are not a new farmer, then you must use historical data. This is information of the past, and then assumptions to predict how much money your startup will need to spend each month. Now, for a business that is starting now, there's no historical data. You are starting from zero. But if it is a business that you're probably in your second year, or you did a 6 months budget, and then now you want to do for a full year, at least you have some historical data. So as you do your budget, you must combine what is already happening plus now assumptions about the future. So class, are we together before I continue? You can just by emoji tell me we are together. Class, any from, great, yeah, thank you. Thank you, I can see we are together. So maybe before I proceed to the next phase, my question would be, how many of you have already started a business? How many? Okay, so I can see you are confirming we are together, but I'm asking how many of us have a business that is running? There's a okay, I haven't. Okay, I can see most of you have not started, but I'm sure most of you are hoping to start businesses. Remember that currently the economy in all our countries cannot absorb us, so we must have that mind that will create businesses. Now, I can see John Anthony has started one. I can see also Chika, great. The NGO group is also here. Yeah, so for the NGOs, other than businesses, have you ever started an organization or just something to help give back to the community? Good. Anyway, yeah, so now for all of us who have started a business, then we can actually, I'm assuming that you also had a budget. And maybe if we had time, I would just have wanted to get your experiences to know, did you have a budget? How did the actual match with the projections that were in the budget? So how do we now come up with a budget now? The most important thing, and I like the question where the response where somebody was saying, the NGO group is also here, good. Now, when you want to come up with a budget, the first thing that you must understand is your business model. Are you starting up a business to produce goods and services? Are you starting up a business in form of an NGO that will be offering social goods and services with no intention of a positive return? But you must be sustainable. So those are the questions you should ask yourself. So when I talk about a business model, the question here you should be asking is, what are you going to sell? What services are you going to offer, and to who? So if I'm starting a school, that one I would say this is an NGO, because schools are not in the category of profit making. I want to start a school. Why am I starting a school? Because maybe I've seen that there's a need for quality education. Maybe I have seen there's a certain group of people in the community who cannot afford quality education. And I'm going to be to start an NGO that will cater for them. Very low cost, probably get donors to help me fund it so that I can offer that. So the most important thing, you have to understand what is a business model in terms of what are you selling, in terms of goods or services, and to whom. The other thing is you need to identify your revenue streams. Where will the finances come from? If it is a profit-making venture, will it be coming from capital? Capital, is this capital coming from you? So do you have other people, other shareholders in your business? If it is a partnership, do you have partners? Okay. Again, if it is an NGO, Do you have some small amount, or you just want to come up with a proposal and then they do the funding for you? So before you come up with the budget, the most important thing is the business model that you're going to have. And you can see what I've shared here in terms of the business model canvas. So you can see it has information about this is a partnership. Who are the partners? They can be the partners or the shareholders. What activities will you engage in? What resources? What value proposition? And in fact, the issue of value proposition is very important. When I was talking about a school, what value are you giving? Quality education at a low cost, at a subsidized, or at a high cost. It will depend on who your target customers are. Again, customer relationship. If you are offering services to an outsider, from the marketing side, we've always been told customer is king. So if the customer is king, then you must ensure that you are engaging with your customers in a way that you're going to hold them, in a way that you're going to retain them. Okay, and then what will be your channels of distribution? If it is a school, are you going to be, at least a school is a physical place, you have to be clear, where will I have this school? Will I have other maybe centers? Is it going to be a group of school? Is it just one school? If it is goods you are selling, how will you be moving the goods from your business to the customers? And then what are your different customer segments? And that's now the question here, to whom? Are you offering goods that can be used by everyone? Are you coming up with goods that are for a specific group? Are you offering goods, but then you have made the goods look different to cater for the different customer segments? Like, for example, if it's a motor industry, that's an example of a big business. If it is Toyota, they have all ranges of cars. The simple car for just individuals, low cost, and the high-end vehicles. So you have to know who are your customer segments. And then now from there, you can be able to know these are the costs associated with my business model, and these are the revenue streams. Okay. And then another very important thing that you need to know as you come up with your business model is you must estimate your sales and pricing strategy. Very, very important. And you can see when I was talking about the customer segments, that one actually, you can segment most segmentations can be geographical, but the one I would want to talk about here is then in terms of their financial strength. You can be having similar products, but you come with different categories. This one is for the high class, this is for the middle, this one is for the low. And by actually the same product, you can actually have the same product, but with those segmentations. Like, for example, if I'm selling, for example, cooking oil, if I package my cooking oil in maybe 5 liters, 10 liters, 15, those are the customers will buy for those big quantities would probably be maybe hotels. That's a segment. It could be people who can afford buying things in bulk. If I come with very small portions, that will be enough for the customers who actually want, who can only afford some small quantities for that day. So you have to be very clear who is your customer. And actually, I would want to say something about one of the big farms. I've forgotten the name. When COVID happened, what made them survive is they came up with their products and came up with very small quantities. In fact, they were calling it Kadogo economy. Kadogo means small. So it was economy for the small people. So they could come up with very small quantities of the product so that any person could afford. And that was so ingenious of them, because during COVID, most people were laid off. Those big quantities, they could not afford. So they said, for us, let us come up with actually, yeah, it's crown paint. Crown paint is for making paints. So they decided to come with very small quantities so that you can buy small quantities based on your small budget. That was a very good customer segmentation. And actually, during COVID, their sales went high than they had gone the other periods. So the sales and pricing strategy is very, very important. Okay. So we were still looking at what you need to look at as you come up with your budget. Now, when you come up with your budget, remember you have started your business now, but you are hoping that your business will be sustainable and will be there for the long run. So as you set your financial goals, remember we said a budget is a financial plan. As you set your financial plans, you must set financial plans for the short term and the long term. The short term can be between 1 and 2 years. Long term should be going maybe in the next 5 years. Where should I be? And for most people, the long-term financial objectives would be now looking at expansion. So it means that maybe 5 years from now, I will need a huge capital injection because I want to expand my business. But for me to be able to expand my business, I have to have goals now that will help you now. In the short run, I do this so that the business keeps growing. So it's very important to have your short-term and long-term financial objectives. An example of a financial objective, maybe if I'm starting an NGO that is having schools in just one area, my long-term financial objective would be to expand the business, maybe to have 10 times the revenue or the expenses that we are having now. So that means there's a growth element in it. So that should be very clear so that whatever you do now will help you meet what you need in the 5 years, where I'll be having schools in all maybe the slum areas in a certain country or in a certain county, depending on how your country is politically demarcated. Again, as you come up with a budget, the goals that you have must be smart. Remember again, a budget is a plan. Whatever you are planning, you are planning to do things now for a period after now. Now, for you to be able to meet that plan, you must come up with goals. The goals must be SMART. And I'm sure all of us have heard the acronym SMART, which means the goals must be specific, the goals must be measurable. So don't say, I just want my business to grow. I should be able to say it should grow maybe revenue by 50% of the previous one. You know, that one now is very measurable because if I say growth, the revenue should be growing 50% every year. So I should be having measures for this year and then the 50%, which again I'll multiply by 50%. So it should be measurable. If it is schools, I'll be opening 2 schools every year. That one is very clear, 2 schools every year. Again, don't be ambitious. Don't be over-ambitious. Sorry, not ambitious. Don't be over-ambitious. Whatever goal you come up with should be achievable. So if I'm saying that I want my revenue to grow by 50%, my question should be, what is my market base? Do a market analysis. Is my product likely to be embraced by the potential market? And if yes, then you say, let me start small and then I'll be growing. So that means that you have started small and you can see the growth of 50% makes sense. Otherwise, if you say that you want to grow to 1 million customers and your target customers are not even 1 million, then that will definitely not be achievable. Again, it should be relevant. Whatever you are saying must be something that is related to what you are doing and it fits into the main goals. And again, it should be smart. It should be time bound. Remember, I was saying in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, I have a time frame. Otherwise, if I don't have a frame, then anytime I will say I have achieved. Because I will just say, no, it's next year, it's next year, it's next year, it's next year. So you must have that time frame. So let's look at how you can frame your goals. So for example, here, short-term goal would be achieve profitability within the first year. So that means that within the first year, at least your incomes should be more than the expenses. If it is an NGO that is non-profit making, your expenses should be less than the revenue so that you're going to have a surplus. So you can see that one is very clear. Even though now the amount is not clear, but now as you go to measurable, now you'll be able to actually say that my profitability should be maybe 10% in terms of the gross profit or the net profit. So when you say that, now you have an idea how much that is. And then long term, expand the customer base and increase revenue by 20% annually. Now, this is a very good goal because one, in terms of the revenue, you have 20% of what you had mentioned in the short-term goal. How are you going to expand the revenue by this 20%? By increasing your customer base. So you can see it is very clear, trying to show you exactly where you're going. And again, from a time perspective, one is short term, the other one is long term. So the business has to define, when you talk about long term, what period is this? Is this 3 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 2 years? So you can see these are just examples of the short term and long-term financial goals. So as you think about coming up with your business, for those of you who said you're looking forward to start a business, these should be some of the questions you ask yourself. So where do I want to be in the next 1 year, 2 years? But where do I want to be 5 years, 3 years from now? Again, what is important is that it's good for us. I've said so much about a budget, why a budget is good. I've told you how you come up with a budget. So the next question then should be, what are the benefits of coming up with this budget? Okay, because once we know the benefit, we'll get the motivation to come up with the budget. Now, one is, if you come up with a budget, you are going to have improved financial control. Remember at the beginning, I mentioned a situation whereby you have to have a plan for expenses. Otherwise, you'll be seeing everything and saying, yes, my business needs new seats. Yes, my business needs this. My business needs this. No, if you have a budget, you have already looked into the future and said, this is what I will need. So whatever you see outside there, you'll not be buying things out of impulse. Again, a budget brings in increased efficiency. How does that happen? Now, once you have come up with a budget, this is the plan. Now, the next step is to actually start the business. Now, you'll be comparing what you had planned vis-a-vis what you have actually spent, or what you have actually expended. So, when you compare, you don't just say, oh, I had planned to pay rent for 10,000. Now I'm paying for 120. Or 12,000. You don't stop there. The question should be, why am I paying more than what I had agreed? Is it that maybe I underestimated the rent expense? Is it that I did not negotiate well? Is it that I have moved to an area or a region that I had not planned? So you need to, you see now those questions, they will now make you become now more efficient. So you might actually even say now that since that I'm paying extra rent by 2,000 per month, then can I find another way of reducing my expenses? Otherwise, that increase of 2,000, and then I get something else that has an increase, will actually take me to a situation where I'll be spending more than I had expected, and therefore lead me to making a deficit or a loss. Again, with budgeting, you enhance your decision making. This is because you plan before you actually start. It's like, even if you look at the money I'm assuming definitely most of you get funds from your parents. Some of you, all of you, I'm assuming again, are getting some stipend from the Wells Mountain. So when you get your money, before you spend it, if you had a plan, then you are going to make better decisions, because you'll say, I need to buy clothes. Now you'll ask yourself, so how much am I allocating for clothes? And then once you put the amount, so where can I get clothes of this amount? So you can see you are making the plans now before you actually even get the money or you start spending. So that actually enhances your decision making. Again, tying on that, it enhances better resource utilization. Actually, money is very tricky. If you have no plans, money will get plans for you on how to spend it. So the budget helps you to plan. And finally, another advantage of budgeting is there's reduced financial risk. When we talk about reduced financial risk, this means there'll be no major surprises where you discover, I had projected to buy maybe to pay rent at 10,000 shillings, but now I'm paying X amount. Now, remember, when you are doing your budget, you must have done some projections on the rent. So if you had not done that before, you might go to an area where rent keeps fluctuating, or when you went there, the rent was less. And then now the rent has gone up, because that's what happened during the COVID period. You found that most of the landlords were not getting tenants because people were not working. So most areas, actually, the rent expense went down. But then after the economy somehow stabilized, the rent now went back to their market rates. So if you had not done your background well, you're going to be in that financial risk where your expenses, because of lack of poor planning, are actually more than what you had envisaged. Another financial risk is lack of money to run the business. Excuse me. So if you had not planned on how much you're going to spend for the goods or the services that you are offering, you'll find that when the reality comes on the actual, it can be very different. So the beauty with the budget is that before you put any value and say, this is what I'm intending to spend, you must have done some research. So you didn't just come with it, a figure from nowhere. So those are some of the benefits of budgeting. So now that we have an idea of what a budget is, we have an idea of the budgeting, we know how to come up with budgets. The next thing we need to ask ourselves, and this is actually on an introductory way, is what are the different types of budget? Now, if I can give a technical definition of a budget, I would say that a budget is a tool that helps us to plan for different resources. Now, we have different types of resources. Cash is a resource. Materials, if you're in manufacturing, if you are in a manufacturing business, the materials that you use are also resources. If you are doing a HR budget, your resources are the people. So basically, a budget is just a plan for utilization of resources. Now, because of that, then we have different types of budgets. As I look at these 4 types of budgets, I want to just let you know that we have different types of budgets based on the different classification methods that one wants to use. So this is just one way of classifying the budget. So other books you will read, they will have different classification depending on what category or why do they want to have that information about the categories of budgets. So the first budgets that are for any business you have to come across are the operational budgets. Now, the operational budgets are the ones that cover day-to-day activities of the business. So they will have information about the day-to-day expenses and revenues. So if I can just ask, what are the different day-to-day expenses? If you are to start a business, what are the day-to-day expenses? So can I have some charts on different expenses and revenues that happen on a day-to-day basis for whatever business that you have? So please give, let me see from your chart so that I know whether we are together. So as you chart, so maybe for those of you who have no business, assume that you are starting a business of a hospital. So what are the day-to-day expenses that you'd be having? Assume also that you are having a business you are part of the, what are they called? This taxi, the hailing taxi, the online taxis. What kind of expenses would you be having on a day-to-day activities? Okay, I can see Chika has said some consumables. Give me examples of the consumables, Chika. Others, I'm waiting for your comments. Good, yeah. Thank you so much, Chika. You've said hand gloves in a hospital. Yes, the gloves are needed on a day-to-day basis. So these ones will fall under the operational budgets. We have the tax. If you are running a business for transportation, fuel will be a running expense and operational. There's the transportation fee, again, just for moving from point A to B. For hospital, the medical supplies, and they are quite wide, the range. You put the syringes, the disinfectants for daily cleaning, good. The drugs also good. Yeah, so we can see these are the day-to-day activities. Even rent, because rent you have to pay on a monthly basis. So operational budgets are very important because they tell us on a day-to-day basis, this is actually what we need to pay. Good, we have electricity, water, internet, good. So at least I'm happy that we are all together. So operational budgets, even as the name suggests, these are the ways for the day-to-day operations of the business. So we also have revenue. So a revenue that falls under operational is the sales. When you make sales, when you are collecting fee from the patient, that's an operational income. So somebody is, Stella here is saying, assuming that I'm starting a business for a cafeteria, I will be paying for bills and buying food, goods. I can see from the medical side, we have quite a number here where we have drugs, water, gloves, etc. Good. So those are the operational items. Now, looking at these operational items, you can see these are items you need them on a day-to-day basis. So it will be very important that as you come up with your business, you need to know what are these things that you'll need, and have a list and the cost and the quantities, so that once you start running the business, you have money for these items. Otherwise, your business will be the part of the 90% that collapses. Now, the other very important budget is a capital budget. Now, capital budgets, on the other hand, these ones are budgets for spending on acquiring long-term assets or large investments and purchases. So, for example, when we talk about a taxi business, your capital budget will be the motor vehicles. Good. If you are having a hospital, the equipment that you'll be having, those are capital items. So basically, these are things that you will buy to use, not for one day, not for 2 days, not for 1 year, but for a long period of time. Now, these are very important, because if you don't have the capital items, your business will not operate. You can imagine I want to start a taxi business and I don't have a car, then how will the business even run? So these ones are very critical. They're the ones that make the business run. They're the ones that enable the business to earn the revenue that the business is earning. Now, the other budget that we have is the cash flow budgets. Now, the cash flow budgets are very critical, because they tell us how much cash will be coming in the business, how much cash will be coming out of the business. So basically what it is telling us, these are your cash needs, these are your cash expenses. Now, a cash flow budget is very important, because it will now be able to tell you, will you be having excess cash or deficit cash? When will these excesses and deficits mean? What should you do? So you don't wait for a certain month, you discover you have a deficit, and then you start running helter-skelter looking for funds. If you have a budget, you will know in the month of January, normally people don't have money to go to hospital because they spent all their money in December. So you might now want to know, where will you get money for paying the fixed expenses? You need to pay your salary. So you have, but from the budget, since especially for businesses that are cyclic, this will be very important. Like, for example, for me, I work in an educational institution. We don't collect money for fee all the time. The high peaks for collecting fee are during the first months of the semester. Again, somewhere in between the semester, where people are supposed to clear the balances, that is where we need the cash. We collect the cash. But remember, all these times, we still have to pay our normal expenses, the operating expenses. So by having this cash flow budget, you're able to know. And again, now for us, during the opening periods of the semester, a lot of cash comes in. So we cannot just say, let the cash be in the bank. No, we have to say, for the next 2 months, we'll be having so much cash and we need this less cash. So can we invest it in other activities? Let us put it in the bank for term deposits with a good rate. Let us invest maybe in the short term assets like the treasury bill. So you see, if you have a cash flow budget, you are able to know where cash comes in, where it goes, and just when the quantities are there. Again, we also have project budgets. These ones are whereby we have specific budgets. And for the NGOs, those of you in the non-profit making sector, you have a lot of projects. So you must have project budgets for each project, because each project has probably a different donor, different requirements, different timelines, different activities. So just have project budgets. So these ones are for allocating resources for specific projects or initiative. So I can go to the next page. And if you have any question, please, you're free to ask as we proceed. So now that we know what budgets are, I want us to go through the step-to-step guide on how to come up with a budget. And for us, this is the most significant part of this, because at the end of this, you should be able to come up with a budget. So what are the step-by-step? So some of them I'd mentioned when we had started, but now we'll be very specific on the steps. Now, the first step is that you must set your goals and objectives. We had mentioned about long-term goals, short-term goals. We talked about how should our goals be. They must be SMART. The next thing, very critical, you must determine your financial targets and priorities. I want to start a school. How much do I want to make? I want to make maybe a revenue of 1 million. How many students should I have to have that? So you can see, if I say that I need to collect fee of 1 million, I must have the underlying figure of students who will give me that revenue. If I'm saying that I'm going to start a hospital and I'm going to get my revenue from the fee that they pay, then I should be able to know how many patients am I expecting. So you don't just forecast revenues without having now the underlying activity that will push the revenues. If I'm starting a business, maybe I want to start a chicken business where I'm selling eggs. If I say that I'll be selling 50 crates of eggs, then I should be also, trays, then I should be able to know I should have X number of hens, and they should be able to start laying at this time so that I'm able to get the 50. So forecasting revenue, very important. And then I had said before, when it comes to revenue, depending on the kind of organization or business that you're running, you can have other sources of revenue other than maybe the core activity. So if you are running maybe a school, you can collect the fee. But since running a school business is a social good, you can even have donors. So that's also a source of revenue. So will you be writing proposals so that you get more funding? So you can have revenues from donations, from grants. You can have loans. All those are forms of revenue or income that will feed in the budget. Again, very important, estimate your expenses. You must identify the expenses, you must quantify them, and you must come up with the anticipated cost. And this cost must be guided by a good market review. Otherwise, they'll be so different from the actual that you'll either be having excess cash or less cash. But in most cases, we tend to underestimate. So make sure you don't underestimate. Have informed cost and right assumptions. Now, once you have this, you now have your number one where you're setting the goals. You have the financial targets and priorities. You have a forecast of revenues and expenses. The next thing is now you can develop a budget. So here we are saying develop a detailed financial plan based on the revenues and expense forecast. So once you've done that, now you can be able to allocate the resources. And then remember at the beginning I said budgets will never be 100% accurate. Because this is a plan, you have so many assumptions about the future. The future is never certain. So you must also have a way of monitoring and adjusting the budget. When you find there are variances, you must know why. I had planned to get X, but now I've gotten 90% of the X. So I'm short of 10. So why did that happen? Now you must dig back and see, was it because I made wrong assumptions? Is it because I was very optimistic? Is it because maybe something has happened outside your control where the government has decided to maybe stop employing, or there are massive job losses because of maybe political policies or economic policies in your country? So once you know the cause, now you need to adjust your budget. So track the actual against the budget and make necessary adjustment. So monitoring and evaluation is not just to monitor, but is to monitor and come with an action plan. Again, when it comes to the monitoring, sometimes you might find the actual performance is better than what you had projected in the budget. So you have to ask yourself, why did this happen? Is it that maybe by luck? Is it that I underestimated the potential clients? So when that happens, you see now, if you're having more sales, then that means even your expenses will also be high, meaning that the cash that you had planned might not be enough. So you need now to see what are the other things that are affected by these variances between the budget and the actual. Sorry, so once these are the steps that we'll use, and for me to see whether we have understood, I want us to look at this example that is here. So I'll request one of you to read for us. Who can read for us? Success, are they able to speak, to unmute and speak?
Yeah, they can raise their hands and then we can unmute.
Perfect. Yeah, so please raise your hand and read for us the question so that we can I can take a break and also be sure that you're with me. Who is going to read for us? Please raise your hand so that Success can allow you to proceed. Are we there? Success, are you seeing any hands? I can't see any, so I'm
Yes,
not sure whether my
I see
students are
that
here.
Jaco raised his,
Perfect.
so I'm just going.
Please go ahead and allow her.
No.
So please read for us slowly so that we get it right.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Thank you, Prof. So let me just read right away. It says, a small NGO in Kenya is planning to launch a new community development project that is aimed at improving access to education for children in rural areas. The project will involve building a new school, providing educational materials, and hiring teachers. The following estimated costs and potential funding sources relate to the NGO's new educational project. The estimated costs include number one, construction, $150,000, educational materials, $25,000, teacher salaries, $50,000, administrative costs, $10,000, contingency fund, 10% of total costs. Potential funding sources include number one, government grant, $100,000, private donations, $50,000, fundraising events, $20,000. The required task is number one, prepare the budget for the NGO's new project. And number two, identify any potential funding shortfalls and propose strategies to address them.
Thank you so much, Caleb, for reading for us. Yes, so basically this is a very, very simple example. So it's about a school, it's about a small NGO. It's in Kenya. At least since I'm from Kenya, I decided to pick Kenya. I didn't know where most of you would be coming from. And then you can see it's a community project, no intention of profits. So, and that is the nature of NGOs. The intention is to offer that public good, not really the return. But key thing about them is that the sustainability must be there. Otherwise, the project will not be there, will be part of the 90% of startups or activities that fail. So now looking at this project, it will, since they are starting from zero, one, they will have to come up with a new building. They will also have to come up with educational materials. And the educational materials can be quite wide. Maybe examples you can chart. What are these educational materials? So you can chart so that I know we are together. And then also now they need the human resources. Who are the teachers who will be now offering the education? So then NGO has just come up with some cost that they have estimated that they will need so as to start the project. So one, they have come with the cost for the construction. And you can imagine construction, this is so general. There are so many things there. Let me see what you have here. Okay, good. On the materials, we have the books, the laptops, and this must be a very advanced school that is having books and laptops. I mean, especially the laptops. And this, remember, this is in the rural areas, and our aim is to improving access to education for children in rural areas. Okay, so you can continue coming up with the different educational materials. For constructions, again, you can also mention what might be needed for the construction of a school. And I'm assuming this being a community school, which its aim is access to education in the rural areas. The materials definitely will not be very sophisticated. Otherwise, maybe the funding might not be sufficient. Yeah, so you can still continue. Thank you, Joseph, for that. So others, you can still continue putting in examples of construction items that will be needed. Again, we have teacher salary so remember that for them to come up with this teacher salary, they must be having an idea of how many classes are they starting. Are they starting at the lower levels? At what point are they starting? How many classrooms will they need? How many teachers? Because the teachers should be matched to the classrooms and the subjects that are going to be taught. Again, we have the administrative cost. Examples of administrative cost, maybe you can also chat in there. What will they cover in terms of the admin cost? And then when you are preparing a budget, since you are not so sure about tomorrow, or your figures cannot be a direct match, you need to come up with some allowance for other things that you had not expected. And those are the ones we call the contingency fund. And these ones will be 10% of the total cost. So that is basically what they have. So I'm not seeing anybody chatting about the expenses, but I'm hoping that we are together. So now for this NGO, since they are a non-profit making organization, they are seeing that potential sources are government grants. So probably they have done a proposal, they have been having some negotiations, and they have seen that the government is willing to give them $100,000. They have private donations, they have friends and connections, and these friends have decided, thanks Stella for confirming we are together. These friends have promised $50,000, and then they are planning to have a fundraising event. So probably they normally do fundraising. So you can see these are the potential sources. So now you are being asked, can you prepare a budget? Now, in our case here, what we need to have, we need to have a portion, we need to itemize where are we getting the funds? And the question was fairly simple. You can see we have these potential sources, and then we have these estimated expenses. So we need to compute that, and then now, going by part one of the question is, okay, the first question is prepare the budget for the NGO new project, and then two, identify any potential funding shortfalls. So if I can go to the chart, I can see Jose, who says for administrative costs, the salaries and wages for the admin staff, yeah, there'll be the secretary, maybe the bursar collecting the fee, or the office buying maybe supplies, maybe a procurement person for office supplies, they will need office supplies, they will need communication fee. So thank you for that. So what we are expected now to do here, we are supposed to prepare a budget, and then we are now supposed to compare what are if we look at our estimated cost and compare them with our estimated revenues, are they matching, or do we have a shortfall? So since we don't have a lot of time, I will just show you what I'd worked out. Let me escape that. But meanwhile, you can be thinking, just try and get the total of the expenses, get the total of the funding sources, and tell me what is the difference as I get for you the solution. So class, are we together in terms of my expectation? So just do a quick total of that as I try to get for you my workings. Yes, I can see some answers. I have a total for expenses. Wow, that was good. Actually, Daniela, you are correct on the expenses. Others, are you getting the same? What are the revenues? Okay, let me stop sharing this and then share with you my solution. Good. I can see our fundings are up to 170. Yes. So what is the shortfall? The difference between your expenses and your revenues. What's the difference? $88,500. You are correct. So let me project my working so that you can just follow it faster. Yeah, so you can see my Word doc. Can you see the Word document? Thank you. I can see the yes. Yeah, so now this is a very simple budget. So where we have a projection of revenues. We have three main sources. We have the government, grants, donations, fundraising, and we were given the figure so that the total is $170, $170,000. And then the next part, we have the expenses. So when you're preparing a budget, you should have a column for the revenues or the incomes, and then you get a total. You must have this column for the total, and then you must also have a column for all the projected expenses. And then this 10% was computed after getting these four items, which were going to 235,000. So when you have that, you can actually see your total cost is that, yet your total revenues are that. So this clearly shows that you cannot be able to meet all data. You have a shortfall of 88,500. So now we've been able in one question to just answer in one working, we've been able to answer the question. So now my question is, the question was, propose strategies to address the shortfall. Now, if you are the one, how would you have addressed this shortfall? Because if you don't address it, and you can see now the beauty is we have done the budget before we start the business. So the purpose of this was now for us now to know, do we have enough funds or not? We have clearly seen we don't have the funds. So I would want to hear from you, where could we, also how do we work on these shortfalls? I can see partnerships or shares. Now, this being an NGO, I don't know whether that would work, but what I get from you, Daniela, is they should try to get funds from from other financiers, so you can expand on your donations or grants, get more partners, maybe the fundraising event, market it more, have a higher outreach so that you can get more. I can see a very good one from Jean, where we are saying reduce expenses. That is actually correct. Actually, whenever we are doing budgets, and that's a problem I see with governments, when they are preparing the national budget, and for those of you who are in Kenya, one of the things is that we note that we always talk about in revenues because our budget is always a shortfall, but we don't talk about how can we reduce that shortfall by cutting down on the expenses. So I'm happy that I can see a number of you have having those solutions. So let me read more. There's some Jennifer. Okay, Henry also supported the cutting down of expenses. So now my question would be, when you cut down the expenses, you have to be very clear. You say now on the educational material, what kind of materials were you projecting to buy? So you see, how can we reduce, which ones, maybe can we get cheaper alternatives? Can we enter into a contract with a supplier and tell him we'll be buying in bulks and long term? So can we fix the prices? The teacher's salary. I saw somebody writing something like volunteers. Somebody was talking about use volunteers to cut administrative costs and salaries. That is good. Yeah, so we can say they can use interns. So maybe in their school, they'll say they'll have 50% of their teachers on as part-timer, as full-time teachers, and the rest can have internships. Prioritize cost and increase revenues. So maybe here for prioritization, look at the construction. Maybe they had decided they're going to build 4 classes at once, and maybe they will not occupy all the classes at once. So they can start in phases. Again, you've also talked about increasing revenue by fundraising. Yes. The other one, apply for grants. Yes. The other one, face good. Actually, what Jose is saying is to face the project, just the way I said, and build less classes, reduce construction and admin costs. Good. So at least I'm happy most of you have a good strategy. I mean, I'm happy that we are aligned in terms of how we can go about it. Again, somebody is saying reduce the number of teachers for the start and increase tasks for the few. I like this, where you start with fewer teachers but give them more tasks. That is good. Actually, that is called optimization of the resources that you have. The building can be in stories instead to reduce cost of purchasing land. Yes, now you can see if you have, maybe you had planned to buy a bigger portion of land, but then now you don't have, you can say, so now that let's buy less land, and then we go up instead of going vertically, we go, is it horizontally, one of those, yeah, so involve model. So thank you so much. I can see you have very good ideas. So you can see the issues addressed: increase fundraising efforts, seek additional grants, reduce leverage in kind. In kind is where now people will be offering their services. And we've talked about all these. And again, this being a community project, you can actually tell the community, in the construction, can you come, you build with us? This is a school for your children. So can you come, supply the material, maybe bring water, bring sand, bring your human labor, and we work on that here. So you can see those are some of the issues. Explore about debt financing. Remember, at the beginning, I think Daniela said we get partners, yeah. So, but now here I'm seeing you can, since this is, you either bring in more donations because this is an NGO. Another way would be explore debt financing. So as an NGO, you can go and borrow debt. But again, now for the debt, you have to be very clear in your mind that you'll be in a position to repay it. Otherwise, this can bring in issues. And you can see with my second point is ensure that any debt taken any debt taken on is sustainable and can be repaid within a reasonable time frame. Otherwise, the school is going to be auctioned. Yeah, so by actually looking at this, then this can happen. Now, there's something I introduced here that I wanted to look at. How can we critique that proposal? Remember, this is a proposal to start a school, just like it can be any proposal to start a business. So how can we critique? What are the shortcomings of this? And just as I go to that question, I can see Musa has said engage the community to probably donate land. So you can see those are some of the strategies. So meaning you must have a very good buying. Now, I was looking at this proposal and I would want you to now look at, as much as now this is not what we are doing, but as when you come up with a budget, you must have a way of critiquing it and looking at it. Did I look at it well? Now here we are saying that, well, as much as this proposal gave a solid foundation for the foundation, and you can see we have those shortfalls, so maybe some other areas that can be strengthened so that the proposal, the project, once we start it, it's sustainable and it continues, is going deep on risk assessment. Now we should have a risk assessment to identify the potential challenges and then support strategies. So we need to look at that community. What are the challenges? Maybe once we do the school, what will be the challenges? Why are the students, maybe why have other people before not built the school? Maybe it's a nomadic community where people move up and down, so they don't want their school. They'll go to schools wherever they'll get them. So you must do a serious risk assessment. Again, very important, a sustainability plan. Okay, and I have a few minutes before I can end up. Thank you. Success for that. Come up with a sustainability plan. Remember, we are starting a business to be successful, not a business to die. So we must have that plan. And then monitoring and evaluation. We must have a clear plan on how we monitor whether the actual is matching with the plan. And then having questions, why did we not meet? Why was there a variance? A variance is just a difference between what we had expected and what we had planned, and then making up necessary adjustments. So if we work on that, then we are actually going to come up with a successful budget. So you can see that is a very simple example of a budget. So I will go back to my slides where we are just about now to wind up. And thank you so much for your participation from the discussions. I'm happy because I can see we are actually following. So we've done the solution. So once we come to almost the last part, let us look at the budgeting challenges and solutions. Now, one of the key challenges is we cannot tell the future with certainty. So and that's why even for this budget, there was a contingency amount. So as much as we come up with a budget, a good one, it can never be perfect because the future can never be determined with 100% certainty. Like, for example, who knew COVID would happen? Who knew that we'd now be moving online, you know? So the future is not easy to tell. Again, as usual, remember I told you a budget is a plan for resources. Resources are always scarce. That is in econ. So we need to know how to use our scarce resources. Another part of challenges is most of us, you might have a business mind. You can be so passionate in a business, but you lack the financial knowledge. Another challenge, and this one is very real. Some people, as much as they have the budget, they still always end up overspending. Even for you, in your own ways, you might find that your budget is sometimes what you plan and what you buy, they are not the same. You overspend. So, but you need to have discipline to follow the budget. And then last one, underestimating cost. And this one I say that's the normal. People normally underestimate, especially if the money is coming from them, they are likely to underestimate. So what are the solutions? Because of the uncertain future, you must have a contingency plan, a plan to address what might things that you didn't have in case they happen. So you'll say in case of a contingency, in case things don't happen like this is what I will do. You must prioritize expenses. And I'm happy most of us talked about that. If you have lack of financial knowledge, then go and take action and reduce your financial illiteracy. And that's what we are doing today. And then on overspending, underestimating, regular monitoring and evaluation. So as we wrap up, these are my tips. One, when you're doing budgeting, it is important to seek professional advice. You cannot be a guru in everything. So just have some professional advice. And that is why now here as we sit down, this is a way of just knowing what to do. But then the issue can be, where would you get the advice? So if you are dealing with a business that will pay taxes, you must get tax services. If you come up with a financial plan, get a financial advisor or an accountant to look at how realistic your plan is. The other point is be realistic and conservative in budgeting. Be realistic. Conservative means don't overestimate. You better underestimate than overestimate, and especially on the revenues, never overestimate. Even the expenses, don't underestimate. Okay, just be where it should be. Don't over or under, but for revenues, never. Otherwise, you'll be very disappointed. And then finally, monitor and adjust. We said a budget cannot be 100% correct. So how do we keep ourselves on track? Let's monitor our actuals vis-a-vis the plan. Let us find out why and let us make the adjustments. And on budgeting, sometimes when you do a budget, don't come up with one budget. Come up with maybe 4 different budgets. A budget for the best case scenario, the normal scenario, and then the worst case. Actually, those are 3, and the worst case. So that you say, if business will be so good and there's a chance of 50%, this is where our business will be. This is my budget. If things are going to be just the way there are, no changes in the economy, no changes in policy, then this is where we are. In case things are bad, then this is where our business this is how our budget will look like. So work on the worst case scenarios, the best case scenarios, and the just neutral scenario, so that you have all those options, so that once you start your business and any of these scenarios comes in, at least you had thought earlier before it happened. So with those few insights in that 1 hour, thank you so much for listening. That is me in an image. Well, this is me now, the real me. So thank you so much for your time. Happy success. I want to take it back to you. But I see a question there. Thank you so much for this. I have a question about contingency fund. Is it always? No, the contingency funds, the percentage is determined by the nature of the business. So some businesses will be maybe 10%, but 10% is normally a very fair amount. So, but it is not cast in stone. So you can say in your business practice, this is normally the percentage. I hope that answers you, Daniela. So back to you, Success.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kalunda. This was a very informative session, and I'm sure the participants were also very, very engaged and excited to hear from you. I'm just saying that there's one more question from Victor Lee. I want to respect our time and not let this get so long. And what I can do is keep these questions for Thursday so that Prof can respond to this question from you, Victor. So thank you all for being here, for your patience up to this time. It was really a great presentation, and we look forward to hearing more from you, Prof. Kalunda, on financial management on Thursday. Thank you all, and Prof. Kalunda will give her final notes in the next webinar. So in the meantime, take care and bye, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Success. I've just responded. You don't need to break it down. Since it is 10% of all the cost, it can fall on any of those items, budget line items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. It was a lovely evening. Thank you for your time. And I'm hoping that whatever you've learned will be internalized, and Success is going to share the slides. Thank you.
Sure, will do. Bye, everyone.
Bye.